Hello everybody! Right, before we start, let me just explain. I have a bright red nose because I'm actually chair of the PTA at the moment at my children's school, and we had the summer fair at the weekend, and I've been out in the sun and I don't wear makeup, so I'm not covering it over. So excuse the fact that I look like Rudolph. But anyway, let's concentrate on the content of the video, which is far more interesting than that. So, lead-in strokes explained. Is Rocket Phonics in line with the latest guidance? So I've recently been asked why Rocket Phonics continues to teach a lead-in stroke when the latest DFE guidance and the National Handwriting Association advise against teaching lead-in strokes. This is a really good question because on the surface it looks like we've got a contradiction here, but in fact I spent many years campaigning against the teaching of lead-in letters. So I do want to explain to you why I would then promote a lead-in stroke. The answer is simple. They're not the same thing. Let me explain. This is where almost all of the confusion comes from. When people hear the phrase lead-in stroke, they assume we're talking about one thing. But we're not. We're actually talking about two completely different movements. One is attaching an entry stroke to every individual letter, and the other is using a single lead-in movement to begin a word. The DFE guidance and the National Handwriting Association guidance is talking about the first, this idea about having an entry stroke on every single letter that the children write. Rocket Phonics teaches the second. We use a single lead-in movement to begin a word. Now, before I start to explain exactly what I was campaigning against, let me just preempt that my demonstration writing through these slides is me trying to be super careful using a mouse to write the lettering, so it may be a little wobbly or imperfect in places. I don't have the tech skills to do a proper magic pencil demonstration of handwriting, so you'll just have to put up with it and bear with me. I've tried my best. Right then, for many years, it became very fashionable to teach every individual letter with an entry stroke attached to it. The idea was that this would prepare children for joint handwriting. The intention was really good, but unfortunately the outcome often wasn't. In fact, it was pretty diabolical. Children weren't writing print, they weren't writing joint handwriting, and instead they were writing individual letters, each letter beginning with a lead-in stroke, but with no actual joins in between them. This became so ingrained in their practice that they either continued to write in this hybrid part print, part join style, or it meant that the diagonal joins became so embedded as part of the letter shape that they really struggled to join letters like O and A together with a washing line or a smile join. And their writing, quite frankly, was a mess that needed to be rectified. This wasn't in every classroom. You know, there was some really great handwriting teaching going on, but experience and communication between different people around the country, different experts, showed that it became a huge national issue, this terrible writing caused by these joins going on individual letters. Kind of created a third style of handwriting that wasn't really serving any purpose. So that was the practice that I and many handwriting specialists have argued against for years. The issue was never the diagonal stroke itself. The issue was attaching it to every individual letter and it causing a problem, causing a barrier to not getting great handwriting at the end of it. So there are several reasons why that approach causes problems. Firstly, children are effectively learning another version of every letter, even though those entry strokes aren't actually part of the letter. So imagine then that's them learning 26 lowercase shapes, an additional 20 shapes for capital letters, and then they're learning all of those 26 lowercase shapes with a join attached to them. It's like another alphabet. Secondly, while children are still trying to become secure with the alphabet itself, so particularly when they're in reception, sort of age 4, when we're introducing additional movements that aren't necessary at that stage. And in many cases, schools try to shortcut that additional learning by teaching the precursive straight away from age 4 in reception. But then you ended up with children who genuinely could not identify or write a print letter without having the join on it. They were really confused, and I've seen that myself, and it was sort of quite shocking that they genuinely didn't recognise an A without it having the lead-in stroke on it. Most importantly, number 3, children still aren't learning how to join the letters, and that's really important. Learning and understanding how those joins work sets children up well for confident cursive writing later on. Instead of learning the decisions involved in joining, they're simply repeating the same diagonal movement at the beginning of every letter. Ironically, this can make the transition to fluent joined handwriting more difficult. So this is probably the most important concept in the whole video. A join is not part of the letter. A join is the movement between two letters. May sound like a really small distinction, but educationally it's huge. Once children understand that joins are the movements between letters, they can apply those joins independently to any word they write. And that is a completely different skill from simply beginning every letter with the same diagonal stroke. Rocket Phonics has always supported these principles. This is why I was absolutely thrilled with all the guidance that came out through the National Handwriting Association, through the DFE writing framework. So the NHA makes it clear that children should be taught the correct start and exit points for each individual letter, note that language there, without lead-in strokes from the writing line. The DFE writing framework also places emphasis on secure automatic letter formation before children moved on to joined handwriting. So they're really trying to separate out the handwriting from the joins. And I completely agree with these principles. They reflect exactly the distinction that many of us have been advocating for many years. Rocket Phonics deliberately separates these stages. So we advocate that during reception and year 1, children learn accurate letter formation. They learn print, they learn the alphabet, they do not learn the lead-in versions of the letters. Once those letter shapes are secure and automatic, we introduce joined handwriting. At that point, we explicitly teach joining as a separate motor skill. And as an aside, I have also been asked the query before about this separating the reception in year 1 from year 2, because some teachers have quite rightly said to me, but in our school, we sometimes have cohorts of year 1 children that we feel are very secure in their print handwriting and they're very ready to move on to cursive. Great. Absolutely great, fine. You are completely welcome to start teaching cursive younger than year 2. Obviously, with all the sort of pedagogy in mind that we talk about, absolutely you can choose when to do that to keep it simple and straightforward. And because I would argue that in the vast majority of cases, children are secure and then primed and ready to start with cursive in year 2, that's why we put it in year 2. But you can start earlier if you want to. That's at your discretion. So rather than changing the letters themselves, we teach the joining movements. There are 2 main joining patterns that children need to understand. A diagonal join, and we teach the diagonal line as quite a stiff, straight shape to help with spacing between the letters, and then it naturally softens over time to a more traditional leading curve. And then a horizontal washing line or a smile join. We aren't precious about what you call it, as the name doesn't matter. It's the pedagogy behind these things that matters. Once children understand these joining movements, they can apply them flexibly depending on the letter combinations within a word. That is genuine joined handwriting. So this is where people often think I'm contradicting myself, because Rocket Phonics absolutely does teach a lead-in movement, but only once in application, at the beginning of a word. Caveat, when it doesn't start with a capital letter, because just to clarify, we don't ever join on a capital letter. They stand alone. So this lead-in join isn't part of the first letter. It's simply a consistent way of beginning the writing of a word. After that, every movement depends on the joins required between the words. So if we take the word coat, there's one lead in to get you into the word, and the remaining movements are the joins dictated by the letters themselves. You have to think about it. Children have to think about, what letters am I writing? How are they going to join together? That is fundamentally different from teaching every individual letter with an attached lead-in stroke. I bet you're all thinking, my gosh, there's far too much thought been put into this. We don't need to think this deep. But actually we do. This is what, really great teaching is all about, is really digging deep into why we do everything. And that's why I also love why people ask so many questions. I think that is a sign of us great learning, great reflection, great development. Really, why do we do it that way? That's brilliant. So there are good reasons for teaching that single lead-in at the beginning of each word. It gives children a consistent starting routine. Instead of wondering how to begin that word, they know every word is going to start on the line in exactly the same way. Every word on the line, diagonal line, lead into the word. So for many learners, and particularly children with dyslexia or some children with dyslexia, that consistency reduces cognitive load. It kind of gets them going without another thing to think about where that letter's going to start at the very beginning. From there, their attention can move to selecting the correct joins between the letters. So it's actually a much simpler system than attaching a lead-in stroke to every individual letter. It's got this purpose of starting the word. So to bring everything together, Rocket Phonics fully supports the latest DFE guidance and the principles promoted by the National Handwriting Association. We are on the same team 100%. Children first learn secure, accurate letter formation. Only once those letter shapes are automatic do we move to teach joined handwriting, treating joining as a separate motor skill. Our own handwriting resources follow this approach, including the use of a single lead-in at the beginning of each word, rather than attaching entry strokes to every individual letter through a word. However, handwriting is deliberately taught as a separate strand within Rocket Phonics. We recognise that many schools already have an established handwriting policy or a programme that works for them, and they're very welcome to continue using it alongside Rocket Phonics if they prefer. So if you have a school discussion and your staff decide you prefer handwriting without the lead-in join, or you prefer a slightly different style on some of the letters than we use in Rocket Phonics, that is absolutely fine and at your discretion. You are not betraying your fidelity to the Rocket Phonics the Rocket Phonics program by making pedagogical decisions yourselves. That's actually really great teaching, to take ownership of those decisions. We just hope that you take on board when we answer these questions for you and you go, oh, that makes us think there is a reason why we're suggested that we do things the Rocket Phonics way. Always a reason why. Ultimately, the goal is the same, whichever scheme you choose, helping children develop fluent, automatic and legible handwriting. I hope this has helped clarify some of the terminology around lead-in strokes and explain the thinking behind Rocket Phonics' approach. And if nothing else, I hope the next time someone mentions lead-in strokes, you'll find yourself asking, which lead-in stroke do you mean? Because as we've seen in this video, that simple question makes all the difference. Thank you for watching.